What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Off the Top Rope, Off the Mic Sports Network. It happened, everybody. It actually happened. AJ Lee, after 10 years away, more than 10 years away, we're talking about 10 and a half years since March of 2015. We have not seen AJ Lee in professional wrestling outside of, the WoW stuff, but we haven't seen her in WWE in 10 years. And throughout the week, really, it had been widely speculated that this was going to happen one way or the other. That, CM Punk was ultimately screwed out of the World Heavyweight Championship at Clash in Paris because of Becky Lynch. Then he was basically assaulted by Becky Lynch, leading to him saying, hey, I'm going to be at SmackDown. And it all built throughout the week to this crescendo of a moment. There was, some spoilers on the internet. Everybody and their mother knew that this is the conclusion, even though there were some idiots in the media that were like, hey, Rhea Ripley and Bayley. And interestingly enough, CM Punk brought this up in his promo. You don't think I can make a call in a favor to Rhea Ripley, can call in a favor to Bayley and whatnot. And this crowd was going crazy in Chicago, which also made the moment even more special. They were chanting AJ Lee in the open. John Cena seemingly hinted at it. By the way, John Cena had a great match with Sami Zayn. We'll leave out the Brock Lesnar stuff. We don't need to talk about that. We all knew that was going to happen. And no matter how you feel about that, this was a foregone conclusion. And if you don't want to watch WWE, you don't have to watch WWE. I want to talk about specifically this moment. This is why professional wrestling is so fucking great. Now, how they go forward with this and my concerns that I've talked about since this really became like almost an inevitability at this point that she was going to return. But the crowd pop, the reaction, just the energy in the building, and I gotta say this, Seth Rollins playing the coward perfectly, being up in the rafters for basically the whole segment, him running back in to save his wife was a great moment. The look on his face, Becky Lynch just healing it up. I don't know if there's ever been a person that's gotten that level of heat just by Sami Zayn got heat, but that was because he interrupted John Cena. Becky Lynch, and she was probably so rattled, she probably didn't have a script. She was wearing Bears colors. She insulted every single sports team in the city of Chicago, except for the Chicago Bears. And the Chicago Bears play a game on Monday night. But let's be real. Nobody cares about any of that. What matters here is the moment that a lot of people had been clamoring for a long time, and pretty much since CM Punk got back into wrestling with AEW in 2021, but especially when he came back to WWE just 2 years ago in this very venue, the Allstate Arena. Man, what a freaking moment. What a freaking moment. And if you want to just dismiss what AJ Lee meant to the women's division before it really evolved, if you will, she was one of the biggest pieces of the women's evolution before it even happened. So the fact that she's back after all these years to mix it up with Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins at the height of this feud, even though I'm normally not a big fan of wrestling couples, listen, Becky and Seth are great together. We'll see how it works as a heel. It was very contrived, and it was very, really deliberate, and kind of and it also made Seth look really bad as a babyface when they did this 5-6 years ago. Now they're conniving heels. They're annoying. They want to get booed. And now this seemed like the perfect opportunity to bring AJ Lee back in, because Becky Lynch has now become the standard of this women's division since and it really, Becky Lynch's rise really started when AJ Lee left. Becky Lynch hadn't even debuted on the main roster at that point. The whole women's evolution segment was a few months off. So there's a lot of story here and a lot of influence and a lot of things that they could tackle depending on how they want to do this. Separate from this, we also got to talk about this. AJ Lee, everybody thinks that AJ Lee is old. She's 38 years old. She basically effectively retired when she was 28 and got married to CM Punk. And she comes out. We knew she was in good shape. She's, I think she's got self-help stuff. She's in fitness training. AJ Lee looks like she hasn't aged a day in 10 years. She might have de-aged. Like, the Benjamin Button stuff? AJ Lee looked fucking incredible. Gets in there, some simple moves and stuff, gets her whole jump up and hugs and kisses her husband. And, and the thing that just, warmed my freaking heart. This had to have meant so much to CM Punk. Not even just CM Punk, Phil Brooks. This had to have meant so much to both of them. Because they probably wanted to do this because a lot of the old clips from before they got together from back in 2012 when, AJ was kind of like, really on her rise as a character, was, fake engaged to Daniel Bryan and then, obviously gets involved in the Daniel Bryan CM Punk stuff. Look, they really love each other and they've built a really good life together. Despite, Punk, all of his history and all the stuff that he's had to go through. But you could see the smile on Punk's face and how, how much that meant to him, how much that meant to AJ. And, I know there's a lot of people within WWE and a lot of women who grew up idolizing not Becky Lynch, but idolizing AJ Lee, like Roxanne Perez, Bailey. Like, there are so many people in this company who are probably in the industry right now because of AJ Lee. So this was just a wonderful, wonderful moment. This was so obvious that it was coming, much like CM Punk's debut for AEW back in 2021. This is still an all-time professional wrestling moment. It's really a special, special time. And we'll see how this whole thing plays out. Like I said, normally I'm not into and now they're going to do a 2-week build to WrestlePalooza to, set the whole stage for what's ultimately going to be a mixed tag match. And I would find it really hard to believe that the Seth and Becky side wins this match. I think this is all going to be to set the stage for, Punk to potentially get another opportunity at the world title. Maybe AJ Lee ultimately gets back into the ring in a singles capacity and potentially faces Becky Lynch. We'll see. The nostalgia is going to be cool for a little bit, but once it wears off and, we'll see if they can actually parlay this into actual stories. But this is exactly why professional wrestling is so fucking special and why I love doing this show. I love doing these segments and I love sharing my reactions with you guys. I had legitimate goosebumps. Like, I was ready to just, it was like 10 or so years ago. And you have a whole arena, 16,000 screaming people just jam-packed in that building on the mere thought and really, almost inevitability that this was going to happen. Some people thought that they may wait. There was no reason for them to wait. And then the rumors came out during the day that, this was going to close the show. And, okay, on a show where John Cena is going to be on it and you have Becky Lynch potentially in a promo segment there hinted at it, this was going to happen. So, like I said, just as a wrestling fan, take the tribalism out of this. This is a beautiful, beautiful moment. It really is. And I know there's going to be a lot of schmucks on the AEW side who are just going to be like, she's kind of mid. Fuck CM Punk. Get your blinders out of this. AJ Lee's back in professional wrestling. And that's fucking wonderful. And we're going to get to see this couple who has tagged together, but before they were actually a couple. And like I said, I think the thing that really makes it stand out for me is just all four people in this, no matter how difficult or simple their roles were, played their roles beautifully. Seth was great in the segment. Becky was great in the segment. Punk, very simple, very effective. And then, AJ comes in there and does her thing. Becky has been exceptional this last week, really in her element as a heel. Really just elite level stuff. So, yeah, man, like I said, this is big time. This is big time. And they needed an earth-shaking moment. Like I said, the rest of the show was kind of just there. It's the Cena stuff in the open was great. Damian Priest and Aleister Black was fine. They had a women's match on the show. There wasn't a whole lot going on this show. It was really built for, John Cena being on it, Brock Lesnar returning, and then obviously, the big segment at the end with AJ Lee returning. And, like I said, one of the great pops, one of the great electric moments that you're going to see in professional wrestling. It's very rare that obvious things happen and you still generate the reaction that you're going to expect. This is exactly why I love this sports. I love sports entertainment. This is just wonderful stuff. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.